Welcome to the final session of You Were Born for This. In this session, we're going to go beyond everything we've ever talked about, not beyond it, meaning more difficult, but we want to make this so simple because it's meant to be something you are relaxed about. What do you do when a mission begins? What's the first thing you do, the second thing you do, the third thing you do, the fourth thing you do, and the fifth thing? It's not always that these 5 steps follow each other, but almost always they do. And once you know what they are, and they're very logical, you're going to say to yourself, well, I can do that. I can do that. Because God wants you to succeed on your mission and know what you're doing and to know what's coming next. Then it happened, as Jesus, was coming near Jericho, that a certain blind man sat by the road begging. And hearing a multitude passing by because he can't see what's taking place, he asked what it meant, what's going on. So they, the ones that were walking by in the multitude, told him that Jesus of Nazareth was passing by. And he'd heard about Jesus, obviously, and he cried out, and he says this, talk about a recipient cue. Jesus, have mercy on me. Those who went before Jesus, kind of as his PR group, warned him, the man that was blind, that he should be quiet. But he didn't want to be quiet. But he cried out all the more. Oh, how emotional was this man? I mean, he's emotional. How open is his heart about this? Wide open. Son of David, have mercy on me. Come help me. I am the mission. Now, what you would have done before this session is you would have assumed something you shouldn't assume. So Jesus stood still and commanded him to be brought to him. And when he had come near, he asked him a question. Because he wasn't sure what the man wanted. Saying, what do you want me to do for you? That's the Elisha question that the Holy Spirit uses to force the recipient to tell you what they really want. Be careful you don't assume you know, unless you have complete peace in your heart. And he said, Lord, that I may receive my sight. That's what I want. That's the need I want met. That Jesus said to him, receive your sight. Your faith has made you well. And immediately, what's the result of this good work? Did he get glory? And immediately he received his sight and followed him, glorifying God. Home run. Home run. And all the people, when they saw it, gave praise to God. Grand slam home run. Okay. You see those things? Those are all 5 things. They're all 5 things. The first thing that happened here on your chart is you need to deal with the order of the steps. Not that they're always followed in this order, because they're not. But you are aware that you're on a mission. And the first thing you have to do is you got to find out who the what is, who the recipient is. You have to identify the recipient. Why? Just because everybody's there doesn't mean you're supposed to help everybody, because God sends a person to a specific person, and you have to figure out who the recipient is. So this issue of identifying the recipient is really important. It's really important. You've got to identify the recipient. But then you have to do the second half, which is, okay, this is the person, but this person has all these different needs. So what do you have to do? Well, I know who it is. I have to find out what the need is. You have to isolate the need. That is, from all these needs, God wants this one right here to be dealt with. Now, before you go further than that, you want to make sure that this person is open. What do you mean open? I mean that their heart is open. Because if their heart isn't open, they will not give glory and thanksgiving to God when things happen. And as God's Spirit begins to try to work on them to meet the need, they'll be fighting the Spirit the whole time. You have to open the person's heart. Spirit won't usually do that for you. You have to do that. You have to open the heart. Then when the heart is open, the next thing you want to do is it's time to deliver. Deliver God's solution. Notice you don't deliver the solution here. You don't deliver the solution and hope their heart opens. You don't. You open the heart and then you deliver the solution. And then the last part of it is so helpful because it's what God hopes happens. You transfer the credit from you straight up to Him. Let's say these 5 phrases together. Here we go. Identify the recipient, isolate the need, open the heart, deliver God's solution, transfer the credit. Yeah. You got that? That's pretty logical, isn't it? Look at part 3 in your notes. I've given you some observations about the 5 steps, and then we'll go through the 5 steps and train you some. Number 1, the 5 steps aren't a rigid formula, but a logical and predictable progression. That's logical, isn't it? Yeah. Number 2, the 5 steps are achieved through an active, dependent partnership with the Spirit. Boy, if anything you walk away with today, it's all about the Spirit. That's how this works. Number 3, the 5 steps normally, not always, but normally should be completed in order before moving to the next step. That's pretty obvious. And I'm going to teach you in a minute, how do you know I'm done with that step before I move on to the next step? Number 4, the 5 steps feel a bit uncomfortable until they become second nature and natural to you. The 5 steps maximize, point number 5, the eternal results, both on earth and in heaven. You always know where you are. There's no reason to be confused anymore. Okay, part number 4. Follow the 5 steps to maximize your mission. Step 1, identify the recipient. How do you identify the recipient? God can nudge you, right? Right? The person can give a cue, right? And the third one is you just initiate yourself and you pioneer. You just start a conversation because you know they had a need. So I have 3 points under each one of these 5 steps. Step 1, identify the recipient. Point number 1 beneath it, do I have a clear internal sense that I know who is the recipient of the mission or good work? If you're unsure, don't go past this. What's the potential signal? You respond to a God nudge, or you watch for a recipient cue. That's the signal that helps you identify the recipient. What's the threshold of identify the recipient? What's the threshold that you know I can go on to the next step now? It is you are no longer unsure. This is the right person. As I took to that lady at the banquet, I had a low level of being unsure, but I kept thinking I can do step 2. I can isolate the need God want met. I couldn't. And that's when the light went on for me. Oh boy, something else is going on. Oh, I probably got the wrong recipient. I didn't even think of that. Number 2, isolate the need. Isolate it. Number 1, beneath it, am I comfortable that I know the recipient's specific need I'm supposed to serve? Potential signals. Look for a recipient cue about the need. Or if you remain uncertain, use an agent bump. What does that mean? Ask them the question. What can I do for you? What can I do for you? What's the isolate threshold that you know you can go beyond it? You are no longer wondering if you are focused on the right need. Never take for granted you know what the need is unless you have a real peace in your heart that you know it. What's the best thing to do? Ask. Why? It's the Spirit of God will make the recipient tell you if you're off track. So, if God could do one thing for you, what would you love for him to do? Or if you could have one wish come true today, what would you want it to be? Or the thing that bothers you the most? Really, what is that today? When you see, when the light goes on and you understand what the Spirit's doing the whole time, relax. Relax. Why? The Spirit will make that person tell you. Number 3, open the heart. Open the heart. Is the recipient emotionally engaged and deeply desired that a need is met? Listen to that sentence again. Is the recipient, this one right here, emotionally engaged? See that word? Engaged. Emotionally engaged. And are they deeply desirous that their need is met? If they're not emotionally engaged, don't you dare go beyond it. And if they're not deeply desirous that the need is met, don't you go beyond it. So when you find a person who's got walls up in their heart and they want it met, but yet they haven't decided they really want it. I've said this to people. I've said, one thing's obvious. You really don't, you don't want to get past this. You want to stay in this dungeon in your life, and you don't want to break free. I've stood up from people in a meeting and just say, well, it's obvious that you don't. And they got panicked. Because who panicked them? The Spirit panicked them. You got to open their heart. Potential signals. The recipient cue of body language, tone of voice, and depth of emotion. What's the open your heart threshold? Now, please underline this. You are both sharing on a personal and transparent level about the need. You're both talking about it the same way. How do you do this? Okay. You may or may not know the person, and they tell you their need, and you know what it is, and now you're trying to open their heart, and this guy's heart is anything but open. So he's talking from his head to you. Don't allow him to continue. You talk from your heart to his heart. You do not respond to where he is, but where he needs to be. Not from where he is, but where he needs to be. And how's he going to get to where he needs to be? Answer, you're going to take him. How are you going to do that? You're going to switch him and open his heart before he knows it. Really? Yeah, you do this all the time. What do I mean? Well, let's say you're at work and you're having a friend came in from down the hall and you two are telling a joke and you're dying laughter. You're having a great time, and your assistant comes running in sobbing and says, my daughter, my 18-year-old daughter, is a terrible car accident and they don't know if she's going to live. What happens to your laughter? How quick does it take you to change? How much thought does it take to change? Not a bit, nothing. You immediately go from this to, you talk from here. Your body language changes. You come over and you show affection. You change your voice. You change your head. You talk from your heart. Why? That woman needs somebody to help comfort her. This man needs to talk from his heart, and I need to get him there. How do you do that? You talk from your heart. What does it sound like when you talk from your heart? Think about the person in your life that does this the best to you. Within 3 minutes, you are talking from your heart with them. How do they do that? They talk from their heart to you. And they slow down the speed in which they're talking. Head talk is fast. Heart talk is slow. Head talk doesn't have many pauses. Heart talk has pauses. Look at this. I'm letting this come down here. Head talk goes from a higher part of your voice box up here. Do you really get the point across? Heart talk moves down to the lower part of your voice. And so I can sense this is deeply affecting you. But I'm talking from here. Notice my head. We do this naturally without ever thinking about it. How else do you stir this up? So how much is this really hurting your heart, what you've been talking about? Listen to me talk to his heart. So how much is your heart troubled by this? Deliver the solution. Number one, how do you know if you've done this? Do I see relief and appreciation in the recipient because the need is met? That's how you know you did it. Potential signal. The agent alert where you have fear is right here. It's common at this stage because you have to trust the Spirit to lead you. Number three, the deliver threshold. You are at peace that this mission has been achieved and is finished. You know when it's done. And number five, transfer the credit. Transfer the credit. Make sure that you do this. Help the recipient recognize that God has been behind the entire experience. Potential signal is joy in your heart and a sense of God's delight at your service for Him. How do you know you've done this? You heard something. You heard the recipient express appreciation to God in some way. Close your notebook. I want to just close with a story that kind of brings all these things together. I was supposed to go speak at the Billy Graham Conference Center, and I was the keynote speaker for the whole weekend. They had a packed crowd, and I left early from our house because there can be traffic through Atlanta to get to the airport. And as I'm driving there, there's an accident downtown Atlanta on 85 and 75, and the traffic, all 6 or 7 lanes wide on one side, stopped. And I had plenty of time, but I kept looking at my watch, and the time kept passing, and nobody was moving. No lane was moving. And I said to God, this is Billy Graham. I'm supposed to speak for him at his conference center. Remember Billy Graham? I'm the only speaker this weekend. I think, will you hurry and move the traffic? The traffic didn't move. I'm panicking. And I said to God, because this was the last flight to Asheville. If I took one after that, I'd have missed everything. And I said to God, okay then, if you don't want to, move the traffic, will you hold the plane for me? And then I thought, I'm asking God to hold the jet. And I start laughing out loud by myself in the car. I'm just laughing. For some reason, I looked over here, and there was a man in this car watching me, laughing with nothing, no phone or nothing, just laughing. He looks at me, and he nods and looks away. And I said, oh, no, So the plane left, and obviously I'm there, but I was wondering. And it was on the A concourse. And I get off the train, and I run up, and I turn the right on the corner there to the first gate right there. And there was all these people, and it said delayed. And I sat there and I said, wow. And I go up to the desk, to check in, and I say, oh, it's delayed. Yeah, I know why it's delayed. What? I know why it's delayed. Why is it delayed? I needed to do something in Asheville, and I asked God to hold the plane for me, and he did. What? You prayed and asked God to hold the plane? Yeah, that never happened. I said, okay. And the other lady behind the desk turned out to be a born-again believer. And she said, well, maybe he did. We really don't know. So I was so impressed at what God did that there was no seats because everybody was irritated and it was late and there was no place to go. So I went over where the window was, overlooking where the jets were. And I was sweating because I had run. And I said to God, that was pretty cool. Thanks for that. I got some spare time. If you need something done, I'm here. If you want a mission, great. And I've learned over the years that when you ask God for that, just turn around. So I turned around and my heart sank because a lady had come late like I had, and she had a hard face. She was all in leather. She had a leather roller bag, and I said to God, send me somebody else. And he didn't. And so she was right there, and I was there. There was no room. And I said to her, it looks like you were glad the plane was late too. Yes, I was. Talked for a minute. I said, so what can I do for you? Some of the audience is losing it here. And she said, what do you mean, what can you do for me? What can I do for you? Nothing. You can't do anything for me. Are you sure? Yes, of course you can't do anything for me. Is there nothing that's bothering you? No, nothing's bothering me. Of course not. And body language screaming. Something's bothering this lady. And she was hard. And I said to her, so if I can't do something for you, can you do something for me? What? What do you do? I'm a physician. Well, can I ask for some advice? You want advice from me, the physician, for free, right here? Yes, I do. Well, okay, what do you want to know? And I had a real question. And I asked her the question, and she gave me the answer. And I said to her, now, you were kind. Can I be kind to you? What's really bothering you? Heart to heart. What's really bothering you? I'm on my way home, and I am going to divorce my husband when I get there. You are? Well, that's why I'm here. Well, are you a marriage counselor? And I said, well, I am now, yes. So we start having this conversation. She starts crying right there. And it was not a good thing for her to cry in front of all these people. And I said, why don't we just come over here for a minute? So I walked over. This was where the window was, and that was the gate to the plane. And I walked over to this wall. No people were here. And I stood with my back against the wall so she could stand here and nobody could see her. And God began to work in her life. And then we didn't pay attention, and everybody else was on the plane. And the stewardess comes running over. Do you two not want to fly to Asheville? I said, oh, yes, we do. Well, you better get on the plane because we're ready to close the door. And the lady said to me, oh, no, we're not done. And I said, well, we'll sit together on the plane. What do you mean we'll sit together on the plane? And we start walking down and I said, well, if you were God, wouldn't you want us to finish this conversation? What do you mean if you were God? What are you talking about, God? God can't make us sit together on the plane. I said, really? I didn't know that'd be that hard for him. Well, where are you seated? She got a little irritated. And I said, I don't know. I haven't looked. So I opened it up and I showed her mine, and we're 3 rows away. She said, God, sure. So I let her lead, obviously. She was the lady, and she came and she sat on this aisle. And I walked by and she says, yeah, right, sit together. And I said to God, it's your turn. And I sat on this aisle right here. It was 2 on this side and 3 on this side. I'm sitting there kind of wondering, okay, it's up to you. There was a big man here. He was seated in the middle. He had to live through these things. He stands up and he turns around on his knee and he says to me, I hate the middle seat. You have an aisle seat. It's obvious you two are together. So I got up. He got out. She moved over. I sat down and she said, wow, that was God, wasn't it? Yep. By the time we landed in Nashville, she forgave her husband. She recommitted her vows. Her heart opened up again. That's what it looks like. Changes the person forever. Was I sent? Yes. Was the plane held? I don't know. It appears that it was. Did God put the two of us together? Yes. Did God know the broken heart situation of the wife and the husband who was going to be divorced? Yes. Did he send somebody that could be of assistance? Yes. Did he supernaturally move seats? Yes. Did he give the answer on the plane? Yes. Who got the credit? You see, ladies and gentlemen, you know it by now, don't you? You were born for this.